All right, let's get started. So, hello everyone. This is the bi-weekly meeting of the Storage SIG. Today is Thursday, October 27. As a reminder, this meeting is public and recorded. And today on the agenda, we've got a lot of items. First up, let me give an update on NFS and Gluster in GCI. So, as a lot of you know, Google Compute Engine and Container Engine are moving to a new base OS image. It's GCI. It's based on Chromium instead of Debian 7, which is being deprecated. The old image was called Container VM. The old image had a bunch of the storage utilities required for mounting packaged into the OS. This included glusterfs, NFS, and iSCSI. The new base image, GCI, does not have any of those utilities packaged in. So we were looking for a way to get those utilities packaged in because users kind of were looking for these things, and without them, kubelet can't mount NFS or iSCSI or glusterfs. We were hoping to put them in the base image, but GCI is a very minimal image, and what we decided was that we're going to have to find a way to be able to package these binaries that are required for mounting outside of the operating system. And we decided to come up with some sort of containerization scheme. I know a few of you have kind of prototyped something like this. Huamin had something a while ago where he prototyped containerization of mount binaries. For the moment, the plan that we have is to only do this, basically flag enable it and only enable it for GC GKE. And the idea would be to, instead of calling down to the mount utility available on the node machine, call out to a script that starts a container, and the container has escalated privileges and has mount namespace propagation enabled, and it has all the mount utilities packaged inside the container, and the container does the mount itself, and the mount is propagated outside of the container. So these changes are planned for this coming release. Jing Shu on our side is working on them at the moment. I wanted to give everybody an update on that. Any questions about that?
Just an observation on the Red Hat side for Atomic. Our product management is basically feels the same way. So like Atomic is like the super low pared down image, and they don't want to include any basically mount drivers or kernel modules that this thing needs, that the different storage endpoints need to do the mount. And so we're pretty interested in solving this problem too.
Yeah, this is something. Sorry, go ahead, Brad.
Is there a design document floating around for this, or?
There is a design doc internally. We'll have to publish something externally. There are PRs. If you look for stuff from Vish, you'll find some of the PRs around this. I think Matthew Wong and Wrapup have been on some of these PRs, so they're kind of familiar with the area. You might be able to ping them as well.
Okay, thanks.
But yeah, Steve, it's to your point.
Hey,
this was
Saad,
something. Hey, Aaron, what's up? Go ahead, Aaron.
I was just letting you know I joined late. Sorry about that.
Gotcha. No worries. So this was something that we were planning on doing anyway. It just the timeline got escalated, and to start off with, what we'll have is probably not something that it'll be pointing in the right direction. It's the way that we want to go. It's not the fully flushed out solution, but it's pointing in the right direction. All right, so next up, I think Michael Rubin had a few comments on containerization work in the future, but I don't think he's on the line at the moment. So we can put that off until he joins. Michael, are you there? He's not. Okay, we can skip over that. All right, next up we have Haley Swimler from Linbit. Haley?
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
So just bringing attention to an issue I raised on GitHub. It's number 32739. Been a little under the weather, so my voice is kind of weak right now, so please forgive me. I'd like to add support for DRD volumes as a volume type in Kubernetes. And so just bringing this to the attention of the SIG.
Cool. So are you planning to do the work for this, or?
Yeah, it'll be me doing it.
Cool. And so the recommendation here is to look at existing volume plugins and follow the pattern from them. I wish we had better documentation on how to add new storage volume plugins, but at the moment we don't. So the best thing you can do is look at other volume plugins and ping folks who have already worked on volume plugins. I think rootfs is a great person to reach out to, Huamin Chen. He has written a lot of the existing plugins, so he'll have a lot of experience to share.
Okay. And I have looked around the plugins and seen how they're put together. One of the things I did have questions about was the end-to-end testing. Is that going to be something I need to provide to get the pull request accepted, or is that something that can come later?
So Aaron, you want to take this one?
I'm sorry, my audio was breaking up. Can you repeat the question, please?
So the end-to-end test, is that going to be a requirement as part of getting the pull request accepted?
We would like it to be going forward. We have been playing catch-up, getting end-to-end tests to provide proper coverage, and including that as part of the requirement of completion is ideal. So I guess the short answer is yes.
Okay.
Yeah, Haley, this is Steve. I think, it's often in your own benefits. What happens is that, historically, storage hasn't had much regression test coverage. So other folks in other SIGs, or even folks in our own SIG, will break stuff periodically, and it won't get caught because it's not in the regression stuff, right? And so, in the last probably 2, maybe 3 releases, we've really tried to increase our test coverage, both at the unit test level, but also at the system and end-to-end test. So it's more if you do an implementation and you do an E2E test, the chances that if somebody breaks something and the CI will catch it, right, which it acts in your favor, right?
Right. Okay. I'd look into so DRBD does not run inside of a container. The actual kernel module, getting it to work with a container, isn't really possible. So I did see there is one. There's at least one in I saw that does use a virtual machine instead. So it'd have to be something of that nature. I can't just spin up a container.
Do you have a stubbed out interface or some sort of mock interface that you can test against?
Not really, unfortunately.
Okay, I think that'll be the biggest challenge then, because there is no existing infrastructure to start virtual machines. Either your storage service has to be started as a service somehow, which it means it needs to be containerized. Beyond that, I guess you'll have to rely on unit tests, and if you could come up with some sort of mock or stub interface for your storage service, that would be the best to do an end-to-end test.
Okay, I'll speak with our developers who work on DRBD itself and see if that's something they can put together or already have and I don't know about.
Got it. So
Haley, we for Gluster and Ceph, we ran into the same problem too, right? Which, in order to test against a real Gluster and Ceph endpoint for the volume plugin or the provisioner, we had to actually have that thing containerized and running in the CI. And so, the Ceph container is, we call it an all-in-one container, where basically it's nothing you would ever actually use in the real world, but it's interface compliant. So it'll, validate all the different function calls and respond, So it might be something worth producing,
Okay, yeah, I'll what was that one again? I'll have to take a look at that more closely.
So it's the Ceph AIO all-in-one container, but better yet, just reach out to rootfs, Huamin Chen, and he is the author of that container image. And Huamin can sort of work you through like how he created it, what he did, how he tests against it, things like that. And I'll put his name in the chat for you.
Oh, thank you. I was just about to ask.
And I have a request. As good community citizens, it's always nice as you're going through that process, if you can document what you're doing based on what Huamin has done, we can then create a more, robust set of documentations as more people come along to make this whole process easier.
That's a great idea.
I know everyone hates documentation, but you might put a little bit of work in to save you a whole bunch of work later of helping someone else get started. So,
yeah, and feel free to reach out to all of us, on the SIG. We it's not that often that we have a new person come along and want to write a volume plugin. So we want to, make sure you're successful. And, I'm sure there's a lot that's not documented. So feel free to ask questions.
Right. Sure.
All right, great. Any other questions?
I'm sure I'll have more questions as I start looking into it. But thank you all.
So I wanted to quickly clarify, as far as the end-to-end test, if we just have mock interfaces, would that be satisfactory?
Yeah, we'd be happy with that. Right now, I think a lot of the volume plugins have zero testing at all, which means that if we modify something, we have no way of verifying it. So having a mock interface to test against is better than nothing. All right, so next up on the agenda, I put a bullet point in the agenda doc asking folks to leave PRs that need attention. As a reminder, we have less than 2 weeks. We have about a week and a half left until code freeze for 1.5. That means we want to get code in ASAP. So if you have PRs that need my attention or need somebody else's attention, please put it in that doc. If you want to call it out right now, you can. Otherwise, we can go through that doc and make sure that they get the relevant attention in the next week and a half. All right, so Michael is going to be joining soon, so we can bump back to him. In the meantime, Aaron, do you want to give an update on testing for 1.5?
Can you hear me, Saad?
Yes.
Is John on? I don't want to speak for him if he wants to present status. He's been diligently committing PRs. John, are you on? Oh, okay, so John and Jeff have both been very busy. I think there were like 4 tests committed yesterday. Thank you, Saad, for reviewing those. Actively getting into the destructive testing. I think we provided a lot more coverage just to the basic PVC tests. We haven't started any of the storage class tests, which might have a swizzle of difference, so we need to probably go into those. We have a bi-weekly meeting that anyone is welcome to join to offer up anything that they see that they feel like could be hardened. But we're still going on the idea that, the first tests we create are on bugs we find. So otherwise I think we're moving forward at a really good pace.
Yeah, I'm very happy and very impressed. This is actually coming together faster than I expected. Good job, everybody.
All right, cool. So moving on, actually, now that Michael's here, Michael, I introduced a little bit about what's going on in NFS and how we're planning on containerizing Mount, at least for GC GKE. I told them that you had a rant that you wanted to talk about containerized.
It was a rant. It was a spiel. It's different. Rant sounds angry.
Let's hear your spiel, Michael.
So like, here's some of the stuff that we're learning and wrestling with, and I think it's actually in line with what the Storage SIG has been talking about for a while. And so I'm kind of talking about it now and asking for feedback. Basically, what we're learning, there's kind of a few things I think that are all coming together at the same time. One of them is that there's a desire to be able to add plugins that are out of tree so that people are not basically bottlenecked by reviews and development from inside the repo. And this is the conversations that we're having around Flex. And I think that these are going to be having probably one of the main things that we talk about in just a couple weeks at the Storage Face-to-Face SIG. The other thing that's going on is that at Google, and I think some other places that we've talked to, other areas and partners we've been talking to in the SIG, members of the SIG, I don't know what the right term, sorry. The dependencies on the distros are getting more and more complicated. So as we add these other functionalities of clients that we want to be able to talk to other storage backends or storage provisioners, how do we make sure that we aren't as distro dependent so that we can increase testing and just sort of have things be more portable in general? And this has lead to, you know, the idea I think that we've been kicking around for a while here. I don't know how widely it's been talked about, of having some way of containerizing things like the mount clients and the Unix tools needed in order to access storage. On top of that, we're also discovering, I don't know how many people are aware of the images that Kubernetes uses overall. How many people are like in that world and maintain those images, like Container VM, and I know Red Hat. What's the name of the Red Hat image? Is it Brad or?
You mean Atomic?
Yeah, Atomic. You know, it's a lot of work, and keeping all of these straight for all of our storage, you know, functionality, it's something where either A, we make it very distro dependent, and then we're asking our customers to say, you need to run this distro to get this sort of storage functionality and this distro to get that storage functionality, and then qualification becomes difficult, and then suddenly they've got a matrix that the customers are confronted with. All of this it's complex, and it's probably not a road to success given all of the options that we want to offer customers and ourselves. Look, Steve's giving me the nod, so I think you're agreeing with this sort of complexity. And then on top of that, you know, to be transparent, Google has had a bit of a snafu with its own images lately, in that, you know, we have Container VM, which is this image that we've been maintaining for a while that we would rather people move onto another stronger, safer, more up-to-date maintainable image for us, GCI. And again, there's the other images that other companies have too. So given all of that, we have started working on some PRs a little faster initially than we had expected, and now we're slowing it down a little as we realize it's complex, to containerize clients. So that when you have things like the NFS mount clients or the Gluster mouse clients or Ceph or RBD or who knows what else is going on, that we can come up with some system that'll be sort of safer and more, I mean the word in both the English translation and the technical use of containing the complexity. So you're going to see a lot of work coming out of us probably end of this week, early next week, with how to do this. And it's different than provisioners. I think it's funny that we're all trying to do this at the same time. How do we simplify and modularize our ability to enable different types of storage technologies in Kubernetes? And it's a little chaotic as we're all attacking this from different directions and different needs. I think we should be talking about this face-to-face SIG, a little bit of what problems we want to solve and what order we want to solve them in. I think it's great, actually, that all these different groups are doing them in different ways. I was really happy to see the NFS Provisioner, and I'm looking at that code. I'm also really happy to see that, you know, Vish and Jingshu are looking at containerizing the clients. I don't think we have the solution yet of how all these things coordinate, but I think it's a good step now that to me, the storage SIG, what are we looking at now? It seems to me less of how are we architecting the core piece of the system and more of how do we ensure that the system works, which is the work that I think Erin is spearheading. And also then how do we enable this to work with more folks, which is the work that is coming out of, you know, the provisioning work, coming out of this containerizing client work. And then also we have the EMC storage lib stuff. So, you know, to me, it feels like the storage SIG and these efforts are kind of, I don't want to overstate this, but it's like we're beginning to run as opposed to beginning to walk. And we're trying to find the right way to do that without tripping over our own feet, because Go makes this hard, in my opinion. Go does not have a clear ABI like C does. It does not have DL open or shared objects. So, finding ways to make these dependencies, dependable, clean, programmable, and safe is hard. Another piece that's here is, and this might be what Saad was talking about in our rant, and it's not a rant about the team or anything going on in the SIG. It's more of just, I think this is hard. How do we enable things to work out of tree while still maintaining quality? And I think it's not an easy problem because there'll be
user experience too.
Yeah, the user experience. That's a better way to say it. Thank you very much. How do we keep a strong, consistent user experience in both, predictability of what these plugins will do, and then also making sure that they're consistent so that people who are not part of the SIG, who are just, the people on the streets of San Francisco and Berlin, who love Kubernetes and don't really know much about the internals, who download this stuff to show their parents for the holidays and just want to get the appropriate storage system that their grandparents are using, working with their Kubernetes under the tree to work. And I think that is, that's hard. And I think that we're going to have to organize a lot in order to figure out what that looks like. And I think that at some hand, you've got the thing I talked about last time, which is the easiest way to do this is to keep everything in tree, but there's a lot of drawbacks to doing that. And, the easiest way to keep things consistent user experience is to keep everything in tree. On the other hand, what I'm also seeing is that, reviewing bandwidth and the testing infrastructure that we have now makes that really hard to maintain velocity for all the interest that we've got in this area. I really don't want to stop, like the work RootFS and I think Brendan Burns are doing, and maybe it's not these people, like an RBD and Azure. I don't want to slow down the inclusion of this work. But at the same point, I want to make sure that when we do it, it has the same assurances and experience that we have with other pieces. I think I was looking at the device opened PR just this week, and I think that's a good example of something that works for most of our plugins, but not all, and has to be handled and architected a little bit differently for things like RBD. And we need to be aware of that. So that's my spiel, and I'm curious what other people think. And if you want to know how it goes to next actions, we can talk about that too. But that's all. It's just a perspective.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think the in-tree model has served us well so far, but I totally agree with all the points that you've made, and then additionally, whenever we want to patch a bug or something like that, it's got to come out in the next Kubernetes release, and people have to wait, right? And so, whereas out-of-tree model, storage vendors that are contributing volume plugins and provisioners can quickly, they're not tied to Kubernetes, they can patch them and ship them at their own cadence, and ultimately leave you with happier customers, right, or users for our community. So I totally think this is the right time for us to move things out. First, figure out how we're going to move things out of tree. Figure out a way for it to be elegant. I think this containerized client mount driver thing is the problem to solve around, or rather containerized dependencies are the problem to solve around user experience. And then there's the other problem I agree that you pointed to, which is there's a bunch of stuff that's in flight for in-tree now. The Azure plugins that you mentioned, Vladimir's lib storage thing, and how do we communicate what the roadmap is for things that are in tree now and when things move out of tree? I think we've got to figure all of that out.
Yes. So this should be a big agenda item that we talk about. I don't think we're going to solve this. Honestly, we're not going to solve this. I don't think the customers will see the solution to this in the first half of next year. But I think that it's something that is large, it's architectural. And we need to start planning, in a week or two, and then start figuring out what next steps are. And I've got some ideas for next steps, but I don't think this meeting is the right time for them. We're all going to meet together in person. And I think the most important thing, honestly, is the work that, and I don't mean just Aaron when I say Aaron, but that effort to me is a requirement no matter what we do. And in addition, we, at least on our side, we're hiring more people in the storage area for Kubernetes. And one of their, some of their focus is going to be on accelerating that effort too.
I think I'm super excited about this. I mean, I'm selfishly excited about it because my team does usability. And I think beyond the E2E, it'd be great to have like a roadmap of how we achieve consistent usability without a tree. I do think it's the right way to go, but I don't think we have a good process for achieving that, or steps to make that way. So I hope that we all can kind of brainstorm how we get there.
Yeah.
I don't know if you put a lot of thought into that already, Michael.
Oh, I have opinions and thoughts on everything. It's a problem. But I think that, figuring out which ones make sense and don't, and working with everyone together on a plan is the important part. And like I said, I think we get a lot done at the face-to-faces. And so I'm very excited for the one coming up in November. I mean, if you want, I can give ideas now. But, I think the way things are going is the right first step, at least for the next couple months.
No, I agree. I think we're on a good trajectory. Let's just keep moving the way we are.
Yeah, all those things we talked about like a few months ago, they're happening. It's not just talk. That's really cool.
Yeah, I have no objection, by the way, if you want to give some of your ideas now.
Right.
Let's save that for the face-to-face. I think it's a larger discussion than we have for today. But thank you, Michael. That was great. And I think a lot of us completely agree with that. It's been on the minds of a lot of people in the SIG for a long time. So to have that captured is great. And it's a perfect segue to our next item, Brad Child's proposal for an NFS Provisioner Incubator.
Sorry, searching for my mute. Yeah, so we have let me see where I had that. Yeah, so we sent out to the Kubernetes dev list a proposal to make the NFS external provisioner incubator. We haven't had a lot of response on that yet. We have Clayton on our side acting as the champion for it, and then sponsoring it, and then me acting as the champion. I need to figure out what the next step in the process is to actually get that into Incubator. But if you guys would go out and take a look at that and maybe comment on it, or leave any feedback as you see appropriate, we're going to be trying to move to get that into Incubator or something more real than a one-off in a repository quickly.
Does anybody know what the process for creating a new Incubator project is? Eric Paris, do you know?
Yeah, and if you could also bolster that with can you describe what is the things why something would go into the incubator and not into the Kubernetes project directly would be good as well.
Well, nothing can go into the Kubernetes project directly at this time. Everything needs to go into an incubator. It needs to show that it has an active community, it has users, it has done a couple of releases, and I think after 6 months or so, it can go into the core Kubernetes repo. I was in the other room not really paying attention when the question exactly came up. Was it what's involved in Incubator?
Yes.
What's the process?
Yeah, so the process is you have to have a SIG, a champion, and a sponsor. Obviously, the SIG in this case would be general agreement from the people on this SIG that the project makes sense as something that Kubernetes cares about. A champion is going to be anyone with their name in an owner's file somewhere inside Kubernetes, has to say, yes, I think this is a good idea, and I am willing to help the people with any issues they have around, their software, working with Kubernetes, stuff like that. And a sponsor is going to be, it's a very select list. There's like 5 sponsors. There's Brian Grant's not even a sponsor officially according to the rules, but I don't think any of us would tell him no. And that's just one of the people who tried to pay attention to the project as a whole and make sure that these things fit in with the Kubernetes mindset. So, obviously we would have no problems finding a champion. A sponsor will also likely be extremely easy. So that's the idea. When you sit in incubation, I think it's minimum time is about 6 months, and you show that it's active and people use it, then it can graduate. If it goes about 6 months without being paid for, or not paid for, like played with, not being looked at, then it goes the other way into, I don't know what it's called, deprecated or dead or done or something.
So what, like for example, like volume plugins go straight into Cube. Like what makes things not go straight into Cube and go into the incubator? Like what's the delineator?
So yeah, if you can convince somebody to commit the code to the Cube repository, then it goes straight in. If you want your own repository, it is an incubator. There is a rule that anything that is currently inside Kubernetes that you wish to break into its own repository is perfectly fine without following any process. So if we wanted to take the GCE plugin, and spin it out into its own repo, we would be able to do that without any of this process crap. But a new plugin that wants its own repo has to go through Incubator.
And so the benefit of having your own repo is that you're not under Kubernetes governance yet. So the LGTMs and stuff, essentially you can do. You're not gated on like reviewer bandwidth in whatever SIG your thing relates to.
That's you do still have to follow the same process, even the Incubator repo. You do still have to, use looks good to me and the CLA and all that sort of stuff, but you do your own releases. You aren't tied to the Kubernetes merge robot. You aren't tied to any of that sort of stuff.
Okay, so I get the appeal there. You can iterate much faster in an incubator project because you're not reviewer bandwidth constrained. Is that right, Eric?
I think also, though, you're also not release coupled. Is that correct, too? So in an incubator project, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's not just reviewer bandwidth, it's also release coupling. I might be wrong on that, so please correct me if that's the case.
You're absolutely right.
So yeah, it may not just be reviewer bandwidth. I know there's some incubator projects where they're still getting the same set of reviewers that are doing the Kubernetes repo, but you have the freedom to say, I'm not going to wait on the quarterly mark, or I'm not waiting for a patch release in order to get things out there for folks in the open source world. And that's very powerful.
Yep.
Brad, was there anything specific that you were looking when you raised the issue, or just a general FYI for everyone?
FYI, keep your eyes on it.
Okay.
We talked about all the fantastic benefits. What are some of the drawbacks then?
Somebody has to type git clone github.com/kubernetes-incubator/NFS Provisioner instead of just Kubernetes/NFS Provisioner. I mean, that actually is a big complaint, is literally the path of your project changes when you move up.
I have another question too. I don't want to derail from that. I'll let people keep addressing that.
I'm trying to think of any other real negatives.
Do we get billed for free?
I can think of one or two based on a question actually that may lead to one or two. What's the packaging like? If you put things in an incubator, besides people downloading it, I mean, it's awareness and then downloading and communication to the customer, right?
Right.
And I think that's not to be minimized.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not part of the tarball, right? When 1.5 goes out, you won't be part of that tarball.
Right. When I download Linux, and then or back in the days, because, I'm very old, when I downloaded the Linux tree, and then I had to go somewhere else to download the drivers for my machine, and I didn't know I had to go somewhere else to download that other piece. Learning about that, communication channel that I had to do that. And the first time it was a headache. And then the second time it was easy. The packaging and then the communication about, the coordination between the two. And then the last one I've got is version skew and version compatibility.
Which is largely unsolved.
Right. So to me, those are the downsides of taking things out of tree is A, how do you know where to find it? And then B, how are you sure that it works?
Do we get any CI for incubator stuff? Is there build on any of it? Is there tests on the pull request, or is that all up to us to implement?
Some of it we must, because I think there's some DNS work that is in the incubator that, I'm pretty sure we have CI testing, and if not, then I'm bad because I'm responsible for that. And I need to go look into that. But yeah, I don't know. That's a great question.
I don't know, like just the open source Travis you can use. I don't know. Not all incubator repos automatically have any kind of Jenkins, like the main stuff we use in Core Cube. So I don't know, maybe the test info guys have set it up for some incubator repos, but most of them just use the free, Travis stuff.
Okay, cool.
All right, thank you. Moving on. Next on the agenda, we have an item from Simon. He'd like to discuss Storage OS plans for Kubernetes integration. Simon?
Yeah, hi. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great. Yeah, I just wanted to introduce us. We're new to the community, and so I just wanted to say hi. Basically, we're working on we would like to write an integration with Kubernetes. We provide a block storage software product. It's deployed as a container, and we think it would be a great fit for Kubernetes. We're looking at an in-tree plugin at the moment. We would very much like to use the dynamic provisioning as well. We're very early days into the integration at the moment, so I'm sure I'm going to be coming up with lots of questions. But as well, we'll be in Seattle in a couple of weeks' time, and I'd love to meet some of you guys face-to-face, if possible. That's basically all I wanted to mention. So, if anybody has any questions on the product, but essentially we're a block storage product, so we focus on basically our use cases running databases and containers.
Simon, do you know about the SIG face-to-face?
I've seen it on the agenda, and if it's appropriate, I'd love to sign up to it.
Yeah, so just some background for yourself and other folks on the call. Periodically, we'll do a face-to-face in-person get-together just because it gives us much higher bandwidth for technically complex discussions. And we're doing one on the Monday before KubeCon. So if you're coming out to KubeCon, we're going to be meeting, walking distance somewhere. I believe there's a document that lists out the logistics and the proposed agenda, but that would be a great place for you to meet everybody and also get some sense of the roadmap.
Exactly, yeah. And not to get in the way of the technical discussions, but just to try and immerse myself a bit in it. That would be great.
Cool. So a lot of the things that we mentioned to Haley earlier would apply to you as well. The documentation on adding new storage plugins is not great. Take a look at some of the existing plugins, reach out to folks, that kind of thing.
Yep.
All right, cool. Thank you, Simon.
Yep.
All right, next on the item, someone added external storage provisioner, PR linking to 30285. Is this
I'll take blame for this.
All right, Brad, what's going on?
So we brought this up a few, for the last, 3 or 4 storage SIGs. It's one annotation change. We're final review. We want to merge this like today or tomorrow. We've had some we've had reviews. We had some comments on it. Just kind of wanted to give everybody notice. This isn't a big change. There's no API change. It's one extra annotation.
Got it.
Name spiel. But just a heads up.
Okay, we'll make sure that somebody from our side takes a look at it, either Michael or Tim. Michael, is that okay?
Oh, sorry, I was muted. Yes, it's on my list.
Cool.
Thank you.
All right, so finally, Steve Wong has an update on the storage SIG face-to-face. Steve, are you there?
Yeah, just a minute, unmuting.
Okay.
So if you could RSVP by the 31st of October so we can get a head count for meals, that'd be great. Just RSVP by putting your name in the doc that is linked to in this meeting agenda. And if anybody with food allergies or any other requests for logistics for the meeting, please email me. And I think I put my email in that doc as well. Other things are that it's about a mile and a 20-minute walk from the Kubicon site. If you want to pick a hotel close to that meeting for the first night, there's a Courtyard Marriott and a DoubleTree that are very close. That's about it.
Also, these events are awesome fun. The last one was awesome fun.
Yeah, and based on the RSVP headcount, we'll pick a place for the dinner. I think somebody from Samsung asked if they could sponsor or co-sponsor the dinner. So if you still want to do that, we're open, or we can do it ourselves. Just get in touch with me.
Will do. I'll be in touch shortly.
All right, that's awesome. Thank you, Steve.
Sure.
I think that is all that we have on the agenda officially. Is there anything else anyone wants to talk about? All right, then we'll call it for today.
I got one more thing. I'm still nervous, and I have no answer to this at all. Bugs, GitHub issues, it's really hard for me to understand when things are bad or not. The flake system, I believe, that Kubernetes has in place is sometimes a little extra noisy and misleading. And so just as somebody who, I have the ability to listen and sort of direct people in Kubernetes on the team in Google to say, hey, this is something that's important, we need to look at it. Is anyone else with me just having confusion sometimes just looking at GitHub issues and knowing when something's urgent or not urgent?
Yes, there's a lot of noise. There's too much noise, honestly. And I've wondered if we need something like a storage blocker or a storage priority list or something that's just stuff that's basically breaking the core storage.
So I have two thoughts on this. Three thoughts, because as I say already, I'm always got random. I'm sorry, you were saying something, Vladimir?
Oh, no.
So one of them is 1.5 is coming, and it's really hard for me to know, not bug-wise. I think the features repo does a good job of knowing what features people are expecting to have in 1.5, but what bugs people view as blockers for 1.5. And I don't understand if we have a mechanism to communicate that. And the other one is there and this is just my ignorance because I kind of jumped in and don't know how things work all the time. Do we have a Slack channel for storage?
We do.
Is it used? I mean, I've never been in it. Is it too noisy? Is it useful?
No, it's actually pretty useful. People will ask questions. I don't know what other folks think about it.
It's useful.
Okay, then I'll start logging into it. If someone can maybe offline or Saad can teach me how to do it.
Sure.
Because I think we need a forum that says, hey, this is a big deal, and it's not easily apparent to see on GitHub issues, but we need to devote attention to it. And then either A, discuss if it is or isn't, or B, just jump on it. But right now I worry that, we can have a group of people on a GitHub issue thinking it's a big deal, and then another group of people working in the same space who don't see it. I really like the work that I see Jingshu and Justin doing, where she works on something and he goes, oh yeah, this really helps me. Let's work on this together. Or this is more important than you knew, so please drive it harder. And Justin's been really, really helpful for us in directing some of the people on my team's efforts on what to focus on. Has anyone else want to later talk about experiences like this and offer advice or plus ones or anything?
It's funny you mentioned that. Like I reached out to Justin yesterday because, so here's my experience. I'm like trying to run a storage platform in Kubernetes, and one of the the cluster up thing runs on Debian that's missing like DM finpool and a bunch of like dependencies for logical volumes that just aren't in the OS. And so, you know, to your point around dependencies for storage not being in the core image, I ran straight into that yesterday, right? And I was hosed because like cluster up is incredibly tightly tied to like and only tested on a particular OS, which happens to be Debian, for Amazon. So I reached out and tapped Mr. Amazon, Justin Santa Barbara, on the shoulder in the community on Slack. And I said, hey, dude, what do you think? Have you run into this? Have you tried something on like, say, Fedora that includes that package? And Justin, we started talking, and Justin's like, oh, yeah, I'm working on these gnarly problems with volumes in AWS. Can't believe it was, like, we figured out this bug. Can't believe that it was even working thus far. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You know, and so it's like, there's like also like this dimension of like serious stuff people are running into that aren't making its way through the noise to us. Like, that's the first time I'd heard that our Mr. Amazon in the Cube community was really concerned about something around storage, you know?
Right. And so it's kind of funny to me. This is what I worry about a lot as the product is so successful. It's kind of like we're throwing a great party, and, you know, we're you know, there's a party going on, and we're kind of in charge of like the drinks and the security and the house that everyone's having the party in. And we can't tell when people either need more drinks or someone set a small fire in one side of the building, or, you know, anything like that. And it's really resolvable, but we need to increase our pointed communication. And GitHub issues right now, I don't think we're going to clean that up anytime soon. So I'm looking for alternatives. And so if anyone has any, I would love if, one other thing to let people notice is when I'm talking to other SIGs, they're beginning to look at this SIG as a model, both the work that Aaron's doing, the way that we have so many people contributing. I know that we're not doing as good a job responding to some of the larger efforts that are coming into it, but in many ways, you know, it's pretty well structured. And I think that, you know, if we can, you know, unlock this, it might be another model for other things in Kubernetes to figure out. So
yeah. Like the SIG face-to-face, I think we pioneered that.
Yeah, I can't say for sure because I've been here so short, but I do think it's a success that other people are looking at and saying was useful. And then the other, so let's start using the SIG storage channel more, and then trying to direct people to it when we hear they've got issues. Does that sound like a useful technique? Besides just me and Steve going back and forth, what do other people think?
No, I think that's a great idea. I've been actually working more with people inside that channel lately. I think it's organically growing. So,
and the problem is it's ephemeral in nature, right? Like the messages drop off because of the amount of activity on there. So you won't. It's been a problem in the past. You'll get a mention, and then like you come back to it a few hours later, and the message is gone.
So there is a robot. There is a robot you can invite in that will log messages for you, but Slack will not log it. It only logs 10,000 messages across all of Kubernetes.
Yeah.
Well, I hacked that by having an IRC channel that connects to the Slack channel, and then you just can log it into your IRC log as well, so then you have a consolidated log.
Can someone put a pointer to that log in our document for today? Personally, I have mixed feelings about Slack. I love how easy it is to use. I kind of think that like I'm not always good at learning how to use it. I'm used to IRC. So yeah.
I can send the IRC hack instructions. And then you guys can also just use the IRC client to Slack. So you don't even have to go into Slack. You just log into that server through your normal IRC client, whatever you're using, and then you'll miss, of course, like the graphics, but you'll still be able to talk and be notified within IRC instead of having to use.
I don't want us to build like two channels where people are like, to me, if we can just have a pointer to a log and then have everyone else on Slack, because that's the lingua franca of Kubernetes for now. You know, I worry then that we have people talking in the IRC, and I don't know how this works in all honesty.
It's the same channel, so it's not separate. You can just set up a remote channel into Slack from IRC and have the same thing that you'd be seeing on the Slack channel in your IRC channel, minus the graphics.
Do you mind writing this up and sending instructions to SIG Storage?
Nope, I wrote it up. About a year ago, I just have to find it. So
wow, that makes it even easier. So again, I mean, I didn't even know all this cool stuff existed. This is awesome. Saad, you keep all the cool stuff from me. And then lastly, we are really looking, I think Wong, is that his name, or Matt Wong?
Matt Wong
has been a wonderful resource to us for NFS. The Kubernetes Google team is not right now replete with NFS expertise, and we could really use some people to talk to. So if there's anyone else who's interested in helping us, please let us know, because we're trying to make some Kubernetes stuff work with the containerized NFS clients. It's just sort of a request for help. And if you are feel like you're an expert and that you could maybe just answer some of our questions as we're trying to containerize these pieces and get a better understanding of what is sort of table stakes for NFS, please reach out to Saad or Jing Shu.
Yeah, and a big thanks to Matt Wong and RootFS for their help so far. All right, I think that pretty much wraps it up. Anybody else have anything else today?
I will say that SIG Storage is already being logged in the kubernetes.slackarchive.io. So.
Okay, cool. And whoever who is HCHIRAMN? I'm sorry. I'll figure it out later. Thank you for the offer for help on glusterfs.
Yeah, that's Humble Churmal. So Humble is one of our folks from the glusterfs team. So he that containerized glusterfs and got it running in Kubernetes, the server side.
Cool.
All right, thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Later.